And hello again, dear ones. Reverend Robert with you over here.
Rev Z right here.
And this is New Thought Today. Comes to you every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Mountain Time. Now, as we get started here today, first thing I'm going to ask you to do is go ahead and hit that share button, hit that like button. Let your friends know what's going on, because today we're going to be talking about vaccines. Yes, here on New Thought Today, let your friends know we're going to have a conversation about vaccines. But before we get there, we have a couple of things we'd like to do. And the number one thing that we want to do today is pay our honors and our respects to a dear, dear friend of both of ours who made his physical transition 6 years ago today from this plane into the greater dimensions of livingness, our dear friend, Reverend Dr. Paul Skoke. And he was known, I think, well, we'll just say worldwide, for this saying. If you walked up to him and said, "How are you doing?" or any sort of variation thereof, he would answer with, "I'm on the high side of spectacular. I'm one step beyond fantastic. I'm catapulting right through magnificent. I'm on my way to a quantum leap. I'm completely ecstatic with enthusiasm. And you know what? I'm dripping with so much passion that when people walk by me, they slip and fall on their ass. But I'm getting better every day in every way. Thanks for asking. How are you doing?" In memoriam to our friend, Dr. Paul. So, Z, I know you probably knew Paul even a little bit longer and a little bit longer than I did. You guys were probably connected before I even got on the scene here in Colorado. So share a couple words if you would.
Yeah, I mean, Paul was a unique individual. I mean, he was a lawyer by trade, a minister, and just so much light, so much energy, so fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad to see that he's not here. He was a good friend, a good person to bounce things off of, and truly his physical presence is missed, but I can always depend on hearing that statement in my head when I find myself down and out a little bit.
Exactly. Yes. And reading it this morning, as it's a reminder on my Facebook and a lot of other places. I've used that image before, and reading it this morning, I can still hear his voice. I can hear how he would share that and how he would express that. And you mentioned as a lawyer and a defense attorney at that. And so, not just hanging out and doing some law work here and there, but was very active as a defense attorney, and also very, very active in the Psi Seminar community and the Psi Seminar world. So
yes,
I know he has a lot of friends and a lot of family still in that community. So we love you, Paul. Thank you for sharing your light, and trust that you're still influencing us all from those other dimensions.
Yeah, and one other thing, he also worked on global ministry. So he was instrumental in helping to get this word, get this teaching, this movement worldwide. So yes. And right now we're taking off. We had some, 10 or 12 ministers in Southern and Latin America just ordained. And so word is moving, energy is moving, and we thank him for what he did in that effort.
Yes. And all right. So a while back, Rev Z and I got this idea. We started this concept and even made a little video for it. Never really used the video because we very rarely actually use this segment, but we're going to use it today because today is a special occasion. Today's a special segment. And we really think that what we're about to talk about is for the good of the order. All right, Z, what do you think? Dramatic enough?
I like it. yeah, get your attention if nothing else.
Exactly. And so today, folks, for the good of the order, earlier this afternoon, earlier today, probably right around noontime, I think it came out, Centers for Spiritual Living, the Home Office, the quote, governing body, whatever, put out a statement around COVID vaccination. So I'm gonna read through this for you. It'll be a few minutes here. We've got some slides to help you consume this and engage with it. I'm gonna read through it, and then we're gonna discuss it a little bit. We also have some quotes that the committee used in their preparation for this statement that we'll share a little bit later as well with you. So first things first, go ahead, kick back, relax, and let us share with us. This statement is offered in response to questions regarding Centers for Spiritual Living's stance on COVID-19 vaccinations. Our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, wrote that in the practice of science of mind, there is no place for arrogance or the holier-than-thou attitude. The great have always been humble. The great have always been kind. The great have always been lovers of humanity. End quote. We begin our statement, therefore, with great love and compassion for the diversity of thought that exists among our members. We acknowledge that as spiritual beings, we are self-determined and have personal freedom and choice. We acknowledge this individuality expresses itself as a continuum of opinions related to vaccinations. Because vaccination decisions are often influenced by religion or sincerely held spiritual beliefs, we are compelled to confirm that there are no precepts or strictures against vaccinations or receiving medical treatment of any kind within Centers for Spiritual Living. Indeed, Holmes cautioned us not to say everything is all right when it is all wrong. We do not say that people aren't poor, sick, or unhappy. We do not deny the existence of illness, nor do we deny the need for hygiene or medical assistance. We unite with these modalities, are grateful for their assistance and cooperation with their efforts in every way. Though we may explore why sickness exists when the original cause is harmonious and perfect, we will neither deny nor minimize the extraordinary work being done in the field of medical science. Nevertheless, we can add something to the care and healing of our physical bodies. The understanding that we are primarily spiritual beings with a mind and a body, and we have the tool of spiritual mind treatment to augment and enhance medical science, but it does not replace it. Indeed, we give thanks for and celebrate public health achievements that have saved lives worldwide. Taking this perspective into consideration, we ask members to apply their freedoms for the greater good and to consider how public health might be an expression of oneness. And most importantly, we urge our members to think about how to ensure the safety of the most vulnerable among us who cannot be vaccinated when we choose whether to vaccinate. Although vaccination is a personal matter, as is the interpretation of science of mind, this executive team, using our founder's words as a guide, cannot in good conscience endorse religious exemptions against vaccinations under the authority of Centers for Spiritual Living. In addition to following public safety protocols, it is important that our clergy, teachers, study group leaders, practitioners, and other leaders who interact with our members be transparent about their vaccination, test, and exposure statuses so that people they interact with may make decisions for themselves about public masking and physical distance. Well, that was a mouthful.
Yes, it was, but it was a good mouthful.
So, Z, I know that you don't jump on top of the emails quite as quickly as I do when they come out. I had a little bit of a chance to kind of consume this and be with this for a little bit before you and I got together today's show. Share with us, what's your immediate feelings, reactions, responses to this?
Well, immediately I'm like, yes. We know that life is about choice. Once you get here, life is about choice. And so as we take that under full ownership for everything in our lives, we have to look at this matter of vaccines as well. And to be transparent about it, especially as a leader, that someone may come up to or ask for advice about how to deal with this. What should I do? What have you done? Yada, yada, yada. It's a perfect thing to put out, because right now, when we look at the numbers, just the raw numbers, in the U.S. alone, it says that we got about 65% of the population that had one dose, and we got about 56% of the population that has 2 doses or fully vaccinated if you got a one-shot deal. But we're still basically at 50% of the people unvaccinated.
Yeah.
And so when we look at some of the reasons why people are not making the choice to get vaccinated, and let's take that point first, it gets to be investment in our understanding, in that we know that the more people that are unvaccinated, it gives the virus a breeding ground, if you will, or incubator to spawn new variants.
Yes.
And so the more people we get vaccinated, the less likely and the less variant numbers we will get. So it is about choice. And when you choose not to do it, and not trying to push anybody to do it or not do it, it does create an environment for more variants to happen. And it's been shown through hospitalizations and new cases that the majority of those cases, either way, are among the non-vaccinated.
Right. Yes. I think it's pretty clear Centers for Spiritual Living as an organization is saying, we believe vaccinations are the best way to go about this, and still honor everybody's personal choice. So is this walking a fine line? Is this walking a tightrope of true belief? It's almost a little bit like, well, okay, but if you don't want to believe that, you don't really have to. But then in the next breath, we're also saying, and anyone that considers themselves a leader within this organization needs to be completely transparent about their status. And if their status is unvaccinated, exactly why it is they think that, and exactly how they can ensure that the public around them feels safe and is safe.
Yeah, no doubt. And when I look at the numbers, right, when I just look at raw numbers, regardless of whatever, and break them down a little bit, so when you look at the male population, when you look at just males, you have, and I'm just going to go with the fully vaccinated to move it forward. So there's only 46, I'll round it up to 47% of males are fully vaccinated, whereas 50.5% of females are vaccinated. If you look at the age groups, by far, those between 65 and 74 are the highest. They got almost 78% fully vaccinated. If you look at 75 and older, they got 75. But then you get down to some of the other numbers, like 18 to 24, only 43%. And so I don't want to bore you with all the numbers. But again, when we look at this from that perspective, just age alone, the older individuals, let's say from the age of 50 and above, they're at 65 or higher in terms of
much more likely to be vaccinated, right?
Yeah. And so choice is, when we look at the mindset of the people who are making the choices, right? Now, when you look at, less than 12 and maybe 16 to 17 is 42% rounded up, 12 and under is 33%. Now, those people, a parent may be making the choice for them. So
right. Yep.
We have to look at that. But all in all, as a leader, our position should be, especially as a religious leader, is to say, yes, we pray, we do all of the religious and spiritual things we do, and then alongside that, we go to the doctor and figure out what needs to be done, because we know medicine saves.
Right. So let's look at a few of the quotes. Folks, if you're just joining us, we're talking about vaccinations. The Centers for Spiritual Living released a statement today with an official position on vaccinations and transparency in leadership as far as status in regard to testing and vaccination status and such like this. And they brought forward a number of quotes that we want to kind of look at. I want to make sure I'm on the, here's the very first one. In the early days of spiritual therapeutics, it was believed that a practitioner could not successfully treat patients if they were being tended by a physician or if they were using material methods for relief. Now we know that this was based on superstition. We no longer give it any serious thought. The metaphysician feels it a privilege to be called into consultation with a physician or with a psychologist. They have learned to appreciate the fields of medicine and surgery. That's from Ernest Holmes, Living the Science of Mind, page 263. I don't know that I'd ever seen that quote before, Z. Do you remember?
No, but I love it. I love it because, you know, we all, you and I talk about it a lot, about the whole concept of it's all good, you know, and that's a true statement, but it truly has to be put in perspective. And so I think it is kind of crept over into a place where he's talking about if it's bad, it's bad. There's no way, you know, you can put all the sugar and turpentine you want, but when you drink that turpentine, buddy, it's going to be horrible.
And it's going to have physical effect.
Yeah.
No matter how much you might believe you can drink turpentine unaffected, you're going to have physical effect. What I love about that quote is it really does point to our evolutionary process here. The fact that we're moving beyond that. New thought as a philosophy and science of mind as a philosophy are constantly open to new revelations.
Yeah.
Holmes, at the times of most of these writings, now some of this stuff might be after the 1918 pandemic, but most of these things are going to happen kind of beforehand. Even he had not had an experience such as living through a global pandemic. But he's going to continue to point us in various directions. Let's share a couple of more of these. We do not deny the body, nor do we deny the mind. What we do is affirm the spirit. We believe the body should be properly cared for. That is the office of the physician. The physician and the surgeon can patch up this physical body of ours, and the psychologist or psychiatrist can help us straighten out our emotional tensions, for all of which we should be grateful.
Yeah.
So
I love it.
As metaphysicians, we get to play with the spiritual side, right? We support you in making sure the spiritual side feels strengthened and encouraged and uplifted and in alignment. But again, if the body is broken, if you fall off a building, the best I can, and break a leg, the best I can do is pray for you to know that help is on the way until a doctor can get there, because I can't set a bone. I'm not trained for that.
Yeah. And you know, the other part of that sticks out to me very profoundly is this whole idea that we have to take care of ourselves. I cannot sit here and eat donuts all day and eat horrible all day and expect an attitude of gratitude and prayer is going to fix that. Now, that attitude of gratitude and prayer can create an environment. It can create a mindset to have me more conscious. Right. But even that's not enough to have the consciousness and not do anything about it, not have any efforts towards that is not as useful. And so when we look at part of the statement from Home Office in terms of religious exemptions, to me, that gets, I mean, we've seen stories in the past about different illness and people because of religious beliefs where someone made their transition when they really didn't have to, because all they needed was a blood transfusion, or all they needed was some other thing that is commonly administered in the field of medicine that could have saved their lives like that.
Right.
So there's a choice that's being made that in my mind is not congruent with what God has provided us with in terms of medical and medical treatment and all these things that we know work.
Right. I saw one of those great memes this past week on one social media network or another, right? And it's that classic, don't worry, God will protect me. And it's the image of a man on a hospital bed with a ventilator tube, and it does it all. And his thought bubble is, don't worry, God will protect me. And the voice from above is coming back saying, I sent you a vaccine.
Yeah.
Right. I already did that. I already gave you what will protect you. Yeah. So to sit on your deathbed and God will protect me. Yeah. Let's continue on with some of the quotes by Dr. Ernest Holmes. One of the chief offices of spiritual mind healing is to relieve the mind of fear, to compose the thought and permit it to reflect the deep inner feeling that comes from conscious union with the spirit. Science and religion should walk hand in hand in the accomplishment of that purpose. I guess I was a little ahead of myself because that's what I just said, right? Mm-hmm. I'll pray you fall off a building. I'm going to pray all day long that you are free of the pain and the heat and the fear of what's happening, that you're in a place of knowing there's good, that some help is on the way, and then hand you off to the specialists, to the medical scientists that know what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
What else do we have there? Unity is the basis of all there is. There is but one God. Let me get rid of that banner. There is but one God, one mind, one spirit, and one power. When I embody myself and my thoughts selfishly, I am separating myself from that which I think would be my good. You may think this is a very subtle thing and could not be the reason for so much trouble. It is the foundation of most of our troubles. I am unconsciously separating myself from my good.
Yeah.
I sometimes forget how Holmes had the ability to just kind of whack, 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 whack.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I'm looking at these numbers again because some of them are kind of fascinating. So when you look at people making choices and you look at it state by state, correct? So we look at the places that will hit the hardest, like the Northeast, the New England, New York area.
Okay.
You go to a state like Maine. Maine has 68% of its population fully vaccinated. You go to Connecticut, 68%. You go to Massachusetts, 67%. You go to the state of Washington, 60%. You go to Vermont, 69%. You go to Oregon, 60%. So some of these
what's
places,
New Hampshire at? What's New Hampshire at, real quick?
New Hampshire is 61%.
Okay, better than I was expecting.
And Colorado is 59%. And these numbers as of the 27th.
And
so these are numbers as of yesterday.
And being in Colorado, that's not as good as I expected.
Yeah,
that's not as good as I thought we were.
But now that's just fully vaccinated. Now, if you start putting in the one vaccinated, those numbers get a little bit more compelling because Colorado has 65% that has one. You look at Connecticut got 75%. New Hampshire, the one you just asked about, they got 69% with one shot. So, when that group get their next shot, them numbers in those states are going to shoot up. And I'm not going to point out any bad states because this is not about shaming. It's about showing what happens when you have a consciousness of understanding that the physical and the spiritual work together. It's two sides of one coin.
We have to be working together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Without it, yeah. That's the thing about oneness.
Yeah.
If it is all one, and that's what we teach, and that's what we believe, then we have to recognize that whatever it might be that's going on has a place within the oneness.
Yeah.
It's really not for us to eliminate someone else's disbelief as much as it is for us to demonstrate the manifestation of our own belief.
Mm-hmm. And you just reminded me of something that we've stated before, I think, on this program, is that as I stole it from a good friend, Reverend Wraith, and that is, we are tour guides. As spiritual leaders, I believe a great statement of who and what we are and what we're here to do is to be tour guides, is to take our tourees, if you will, on a guided journey to point out the highlights of the city or the history of the place or whatever it is, as best we can based on the knowledge that we have. And then everyone in the tour group has an opportunity to, accept the facts or not, take a picture of the artifact or not. But they have a choice in that matter. As a tour guide, my job is to say, here's A, it was founded in whatever, here's B, it's an old, and the tourists have the opportunity and the choice to make a decision on what they want to focus on, take with them or not. And I believe the same thing with the vaccine and the virus. As spiritual leaders, we can guide you through this, but you have to make the choice.
Right. Exactly. We will not make that choice for you. Right. And you know that by this statement. There's nowhere in this statement that says, go get a vaccine. There's nowhere. And now this is the fun part of New Thought, because as a spiritual leader, I do have the ability and to state my own personal beliefs. Organizationally, I'm not telling, we're beyond that. The organization will never mandate or dictate that. And truthfully, the organization cannot mandate whether you and I are transparent about our vaccination status or not. I will be. I'm fully vaccinated, got 2 shots. If the CDC tells me to get a 3rd one, I'm 55, I will. I'm not going to rush out and try to get it when it's ahead of time. And I'm wearing my mask in most indoor or close contact situations. As the statement says, that's in many ways, that's my responsibility as a good human, as a good being on this planet. Those little efforts are all it takes to help protect those that are most vulnerable in our communities.
Yes. And that's where the real, as they say, rubber meets the road, is when we begin to embody this information and act on it accordingly.
Right. Yeah.
Because, to have access to what we have in terms of medical information and all the things that we have to support a decision, and I'm going to take it out of the vernacular of vaccine, because we could also apply this to climate change. We could also apply it to gun control. I mean, there's not an area we can't apply it to, but we have to begin to be more critical and and begin to think more about the whole than the individual parts.
Right. Yes. We have conversations about that one all the time too, now, don't we, sir?
Yes.
Because when we're working together, the load is lighter, the work is easier, the journey is more sweet and more fun when we're all working together. It's when we're working in opposition that things become difficult. We're going to be right back, folks. We're going to take a quick break here. This is New Thought Today. We've been talking about vaccinations and the statement released today by the Centers for Spiritual Living. And I know both Rev Z and I need just a quick moment for a quick sip of some water and a stretch. We're going to give you just a couple minutes of some information here, and then we'll be right back. Enjoy.
Thought Media Network is on the rise. We're looking to grow with you. Do you have technical media experience or perhaps a desire to learn? Are you willing to volunteer your precious time and attention? We share this message to benefit all. If you possess a computer with a camera and a microphone, we will share our knowledge with you. Behind the scenes or being the star, let us bless our one. Contact us at info@ntmedia.org.
And welcome back to your one. BRZ here.
BRZ right here.
And this is New Thought today on the New Thought Media Network. We're talking about vaccines today. If you're just joining us for the second half of the program, trust you'll catch the first half in the archives. Really what we're talking about today, and I want to kind of go back over this a little bit, just the finer, we'll hit the higher points. Centers for Spiritual Living released a statement today regarding COVID vaccinations. So let's look at a little bit of what it says. This is... we begin our statement, therefore, with the great love and compassion for the diversity of thought that exists among our members. I'm about halfway down here. We acknowledge that as spiritual beings, we are self-determining and have personal freedom and choice. This individual expresses itself as a continuum of opinions related to vaccinations. It's interesting, Z. Again, it feels like sometimes we try to span a little too much within some of our statements, but we're going to continue. Because vaccination decisions are often influenced by religion, one, or sincerely held beliefs, two, we're compelled to confirm there are no precepts or strictures against vaccinations. So this is really the first big statement of this thing, that there is nothing inside the science of mind in the New Thought philosophy that says this is a bad idea, or that we shouldn't continue that we shouldn't continue down this path. We also state, and this is in the next part, that we add something important to the care and healing of our physical bodies. And what we're talking about there really is that spiritual mind treatment works. Have you seen an example, Z, where it doesn't work?
No. The thing that I've seen is, not understanding how prayer works and what it really does and how to administer it. And that's where I've seen the misinformation or the challenges, or however you want to define it, in understanding this relationship between science, spirituality, or prayer, and the wholeness and healing of individual lives.
Right. So we're not saying don't do it. We're not saying it's bad. We're not saying do it. We're saying that it's a personal choice. But however, the statement does also really clarify this last little bit here. In addition to following safety protocols, it is important that our clergy, teachers, study group leaders, practitioners, and other leaders who interact with our members be transparent about their vaccination, test, and exposure statuses, so that the people they interact with may make decisions for themselves about safety, masking, and physical distancing. Now, here's something. This piece of the statement feels to me like a response to a public accusation I've seen going around on social media, that implies there's a lot of ministers out there that are unvaccinated and hiding that. That's where I got a tough time believing that's so. As I think of the ministers that I know, and you and I, between the two, we both know a lot of the ministers around this movement, beyond just science of mind, but around all of New Thought, unity, and divine science and such, and the independence and all this. I think the predominance of ministers are vaccinated, just not making a big deal about it.
Yeah. And you know, humans, we're some fickle individuals. I don't care what clothing or costume we put on, right? So,
Right.
so that whole idea, some people just want to be private about it, or some people just don't want to get into the throes of why or why not at a personal level, and they keep that stuff personal. But in a place like now where we are looking at as everybody is fully aware of, and we're definitely aware of it here in Colorado, we had like 90 degrees for the last 2 days, and tomorrow I think it is, and definitely by Friday the high is going to be in the 60s. So we're going to have a 30-degree drop in weather at the 90s almost. And so that just, 1 + 1 equals cold season. 1 + 1 equals flu season. And so we're going to have these situations where people are not going to want to disclose what they're doing because they're going to be coughing from cold or flu or COVID, and it could get real dicey.
And I think that's a great example. I don't know that it's ever been demanded of me to be transparent in my flu vaccination status. Now, I understand it's a very, we're not trying to compare apples to oranges here.
Right.
But I do think there are precedents, and are we opening ourselves to a slippery slope if suddenly ministers are required to reveal status of anything?
Yeah.
Am I required to reveal that I maybe tested positive for an STD, or maybe tested positive for tuberculosis, or maybe tested positive for MS? Am I required to reveal that immediately? Now, again, not necessarily, quote, life-threatening diseases, and to play a little bit of the other side of my own card here, to some degrees, this does not appear to be quite as deadly as maybe we thought it was a year and a half ago. Not to minimize it.
Now that we have a vaccine.
Now that we have a vaccine, not to minimize not to minimize any of the death that has occurred, not to minimize any of the journey we've been on. However, I've been pretty lax. I've been both masked and unmasked. There's been times where I've been like, maybe I ought to put a mask on in this situation, and hadn't. There's still a lot of questions here, it seems.
Yeah. Well, and rightly so, there's a lot of questions, because we're dealing with something that hasn't been around, or if you want to say has been around effectively 2 years in the public consumption. Now, there's all kind of talk about, all kinds of other things of how it got here and so forth. It's here now. So, I mean, we can do the post-mortem a little later. Right now, we got bodies counting going up, and we need to deal with that. But I think the point that you made about, how does a spiritual leader reveal these things in terms of a transparency? And obviously we get back to that word of choice. But one thing we know, that at various levels of transparency, there is a level of trust that begins to form.
There we go. Yes.
And there is a fine line, I believe, between being too transparent and not, right?
Right.
Because at one point it tips over into something else, I believe.
If you come in the door and the first Sunday you're in our community and the minister's up there babbling on about all their problems and they're too transparent, you're right. That can be, whoa, wait a minute. What am I getting? What am I walking into here? And I liken this to finding a new doctor. Now, I don't know about anybody else out there, but if you switch insurance companies, you move jobs, insurance companies, you're most likely going to end up switching doctors, at least in one area or another.
Yes.
And I have a sister-in-law who's a doctor, so I know a little bit of the behind the scenes of immediate patient care, frontline patient care. And working in clinics, and just enough to know that it's as tough for them to try to build a relationship in 10 or 15 minutes as it is for us as individuals to try to develop any sense of trust in that 10 or 15 minutes. The doctors, they know what they're talking about. I know you know what you're talking about, but I haven't been able to develop a level of trust with you yet.
Right.
I think ministers and congregants in this world of ministry were much in the same way. I might like you. You might seem really cool, but I need time to develop that trust, to recognize that you do share appropriately without oversharing, that you do hold the confidences that are necessary. And, it's, if a practitioner came to me and said, I'm afraid to tell anybody I contracted COVID, and please don't tell anybody, and locks me into a sense of confidentiality, I'm going to respect that too, as respect the spiritual aspects as much as the science aspect. Again, we have a lot of slippery slopes I think we could dance on here.
But the thing is, I believe, or one of the things is that we have to be, we as leaders, no matter if you're leader of 2 people or 2,000 people, we have to begin to be accountable, I think, to how we give advice or information or whatever we want to call it to our followers, congregation, students, whatever realm you are in. Because when we start looking at this spiritual and physical world that we're dealing with, especially when we deal with the virus, we know for a fact that meditation, or often meditation is called prayer, or anything in that vernacular that allows us to get in touch and connect the mind, body, heart connection. We know that there are certain situations and diseases and ailments that are attributed to stress levels, body chemistry, heart rate, brain waves, breathing. We know that those things can have a real effect on a physical condition. I can meditate and bring my blood pressure down, right? I can meditate and squash out some of the high peak, low peaks of my brainwave activity. And because we understand at a medical level that the environment that we are in, both physically on the outside, physically on the inside, and mentally, has an effect. And so we have to begin to employ all of these techniques and technology that the meditation may not cure the ailment, whatever it is, but it can definitely create an environment that is more conducive for healing than not. Right.
Yeah, I just flashed back to the first time of watching The Secret. And if you watch that movie, folks, you'll follow along. If you didn't, it was a great introduction to the law of attraction, but left a few things to be desired. And in one segment of the movie, they talk about a woman who heals herself of cancer simply by watching funny movies. Right now, neither of us are going to say, just go watch movies. If you contract COVID, go to the doctor. Go to the hospital, right? If you're not feeling well. But the point that they were making is that is a vital component. It should not be the only component. It should not be your only form of treatment is to sit around and watch funny movies. It points to this, what Z is talking about, a holistic approach. And not holistic meaning anti-science, but a holistic approach of saying, I'm going to take it all in. I'm going to do the herbs and the essential oils and the echinacea, the CBD and whatever else you tell. And if that drug is divinely ordained, then that's what's going to come into my experience. Even if I happen to be pretty I'm not big on recreational medications. I'm not big on medicating every human problem. However, I have also witnessed the divinity of medical science through medications to be able to help people stabilize in order to address the deeper underlying problems of their lives.
Yeah,
we could go on forever on this one, huh?
Yeah, and because again, we're in that realm of life and understanding where we talk often about the spiral dynamics of life, and that we are in this spiral, either spiraling up or spiraling down. And as we get more information or less information, it has a tendency to push us either up the scale or down the scale, if you will, or up the spiral or down the spiral. Because the more information we get, we begin to truly understand the connectedness of it all, how they begin to, they may be strong independently, but when they come together, the strength that they make as a unit is a lot stronger than they can ever be independently.
Yes. Oh, folks, such a great and rich and amazing conversation here. Now, if you're watching this live or on a rebroadcast, you'd like to join in the conversation, please feel free. You're welcome to comment in the comment box or send us an email. That's an even better way to stay in touch with Rev Z and I. We've got an email specifically for this program and our Friday program. It's ministertalk@ntmedia.org. You're welcome to join us there with any comments or any questions, and we'll be making sure we get back with you. And now, Z, before we go today here, you're also up on tap for our Science of Mind and Lecture series this week, I believe, correct?
I think I am, and that's a great reminder for us to understand this whole idea of what that talk is going to be, accessing the flow, because that's what we're talking about. There is a flow of life. There is a culmination of things coming together that always the parts are greater. I mean, the whole is greater than the parts, you know, and it's like a bike. Like if I look at a tire and a spoke and a chain and a gear, all those things are great by themselves. But when I put them together as a bike, they have a whole new meaning. They give me a whole nother perception of each part individually and collectively.
Yes. Yes. Have you been reading my mind again? This is the one spirit, folks. This is the one spirit working. I've been considering taking on a project of building an electric bike. And it's exactly that. It's this part and that part. The dynamics of it are simple, right? The concept of what you do is very simple. How to take an existing bicycle and make it an e-bike. It's just a matter of putting the right parts together, the parts that communicate properly, the parts that work together. Here in our lives, we're learning how to do that as individuals. We learn how to work together, how to work with different parts and different people. One of those right now, we're here talking about the biggest part of it all is public health. And our statement today, to recap, if you're just joining us, folks, well, you've missed it all. So come back, wait 10 minutes until we're done and watch the replay. But what we're really talking about is a statement made by the Centers for Spiritual Living today. And in that, they even say that, you know, it's paramount to follow public health recommendations. Wash your hands, wear your mask, keep your distance. It's not difficult.
No. And I would just put a little umbrella over that to just keep it all together, is that think about your fellow man. Think about your neighbor, your spouse, your grandparents, your children who are can be affected if we are somewhat negligent about washing our hands, wearing the mask, taking the vaccine if you feel so inclined, and if not, stay your distance.
Yep. It doesn't have to be difficult. And in so many ways, from the beginning, Z, it seemed to me like, yep, there's a lot of people out there that have put in a lot more years and are a lot bigger of an expert than I am. I'm not really going to become an infectious disease expert in 6 months or a year and a half. I'm going to keep in my own lane. I'm going to follow the advice of public health officials.
Yeah.
As an organization, Science of Mind Center, or excuse me, as an organization, Centers for Spiritual Living is very clearly saying the same thing in this statement.
And and when you think about, I know in recent news a couple of weeks ago or so, I've come across at least 5 or 6 radio talk show hosts who were anti-vax and anti-mask and so forth, who unfortunately contracted the virus and have made their transition as a result of that. Now, only God knows what the final situation would have been, but had they had a vaccine, that might not have been the case. And the evidence shows that would not have been the case, because the breakthrough, as they're calling the breakthrough cases of COVID with the person with vaccines, is very, very low. I don't have those numbers right in front of me, but it's very low compared to not having the vaccine.
Right, exactly. I still feel hopeful that we're going to get our stuff together here as a human race. And truthfully, I think there is so many more people on the side, if you will, that are leaning towards this perception of the good. I think it's a very small but vocal fraction that are pushing back against some of these things, that are pushing back against vaccines. And that's okay. They may not be around that much longer anyway, at the way it's going. So, all right, enough of that, folks. Let's get back into it. This is New Thought Today. We want to thank you for being with us. We've been talking about the Centers for Spiritual Living and their statements today regarding COVID vaccinations. We're not going to go back through it all again, but the basic premise is it's personal choice. Nobody's requiring you to do this, and it would be in alignment with the science of mind theory to do what is best for the collective rather than ourselves. And as ministers, as leaders, as teachers and practitioners, we are being called to be transparent with our testing status, with our vaccination status, with where we are, and how that will impact and or affect the public around us as we go about the duties of being ministers. Most of us are still virtual and online. It's not that much danger, but there are some bigger congregations and medium-sized congregations meeting face-to-face that do need to answer these questions.
Yeah.
Before we take off, Z, any final thoughts for the day?
Well, I mean, my final thoughts is take life like we do everything else, holistically. Let's look at, everything that we can to understand the virus, to understand what it takes to protect ourselves. And let's take all physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional steps to make sure that we're safe and sound and that we are protecting our fellow man.
Yes.
All one man.
Mm-hmm. Amen, amen, and amen. I agree. Yes. Folks, this is New Thought Media Network. We're New Thought Today. Now, Z and I will be back on Friday morning for Ministers Talking Shit. That happens at 7 a.m. On Friday mornings. That's a little more lighthearted of a show. If this discussion was a little deep for you, come on back on Friday mornings. Join us for that. And join all of our programming throughout the week. We have just a wealth of shows that are out here. I'd like to share with you just a little bit more about some of what we do here around New Thought Media Network. All right, everybody. Thanks for being with us. Until next time. Peace.
Peace.